Blessed to be with you once again. Waking up on the right side. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Out to Congressman Fulcher joining us. Congressman, good morning. Hello, Congressman Fulcher.
Good morning, Kevin. Great to talk to you.
Great to talk to you, sir. So, everybody in Washington is buzzing about the latest concerning this Democratic debate. 2 days of shenanigans. I know it really doesn't impact Congress, but as someone who has lived in the arena, loves the Republic, has fought for conservatism, your thoughts on the alternative from the Democrats to President Trump?
Well, admittedly, I didn't have the stomach to watch all of it. However, I did catch some of the highlights. And if Mr. Sanders and Ms. Harris and Mr. Biden and company think that health care and education and all this stuff is expensive now, wait until it's free, because that's what they're pushing, and you push that kind of agenda, and you simply run the free market system into the ground, and I still don't know, Kevin, if which ones actually understand it and which ones don't, because I think there's both. I think there's those that really don't have a clue, and then I think there's those that understand it perfectly, that want to change this system to a socialist base.
Congressman Fulcher, we could go on and on about that, but let's talk about bread and butter issues of the Gem State. You're representing the 1st Congressional District. You love the state. You are of the state. Recently, I saw on Facebook some news about the timber industry, some news about the idea of controlling these horrible forest fires that plague us every summer. President Trump doing some good moves that you've applauded recently.
Yes. In fact, most of the time, Kevin, when we have these way out of control wildfires, and we have them every year, on average, it's north of 500,000 acres that burn. Most of the time, it's in the areas of federal control land that just, quite frankly, don't get managed. And they don't get managed because of one of two reasons. Either the federal government is so far in debt, they're way over their head, and they can't afford to manage it, so they don't. And well, that is the case pretty much all the time. But to augment that and make it more complex, when we do go about a cleanup project, a harvesting project, a thinning project that would make those forests more resilient and more healthy, then we'll get sued by some entity, many times out of state, that are looking just for settlements. Will get sued and to slow down the process and bring it to its knees. So one of the things that I've done, along with Congressman Westerman out of Arkansas, is sponsor legislation that would require two things. One, that the approval process for these cleanups are approved faster. And number two, if somebody wants to sue us because they think that they know better than the people on the ground in Idaho, then don't cob up the courts. Go to an arbitration system where you're required to bring your solution and your answer to the table. And so that's a big one for us. The president is also kind of moving that direction. But if we're going to slow down these wildfires and stop kicking a bunch of carbon into the air and killing deer herds and elk herds and all that, then we're going to have to be smarter about how we take care of the resources under our feet.
Congressman Fulcher joining us. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. There's been a lot of talk of going after big tech. In a previous life, you were involved with big tech in Micron from the very beginning. I always love it. You never give it up, the stories of you with Steve Jobs, probably not good for publication. However, based on your extensive history with big tech, are you surprised at just how powerful these entities have become and their possible influence on the upcoming election?
Yes, I am, actually, and it's in a way that I think few predicted, Kevin. When you take a look at a group like Facebook or Twitter. They've published, or they've come out and they've promoted themselves as just simply a platform for anyone to say whatever they want to say. But yet they act more like a publisher. They act like a newspaper in the sense that they edit, they screen, they discriminate against one group versus another, one person versus another. And this is the way we communicate now. If you're under 40, there's a very good chance you don't even take a newspaper anymore. And maybe it's under 30. I mean, maybe it's under 50. I don't know. But there's the print news media is waning quickly, and the social media, what you see on your phone, is what's picked up so much. And they will inadvertently screen people and entities and messages that they don't feel like they want to hear. And so that's having that alone is having a massive impact. And we've never really faced this before in a electronic media where, the news cycle is so short. And so, frankly, that's one of the things that I'm looking at, along with a couple of other members of Congress too, is all right, what's fair? Is that legitimate? And under what circumstances is it reasonable that they have to disclose who they screen, why they screen them? And but you're right, they're having a massive impact, and I think they have had that in the past recently, and if we're not careful, they can have it again in 2020.
Right, and that is the balance. People have said that the president could be going after them with antitrust. Let's move on. Congressman Fulcher joining us, KIDO Talk Radio. Kevin Miller in the morning. When we take a look, at the international news of the day, the president with the G20, the G7, your thoughts on the Iranian situation? It seems that situation is only in the news when the Iranians misbehave, and unfortunately, that seems to be more frequent than we're comfortable with.
That's right, and it's just, unfortunately, it's not getting better. But there is, if you start peeling that onion back, Kevin, there's a divide in that country. The leadership is from of an older generation, a much more radical generation, and they basically have put a stake in the ground. Whatever they have to do to disrupt America, whatever they have to do to intervene in a negative way with the West to try to force their beliefs on. The younger population doesn't appear to be in general quite so radical, but this is not getting better. I think the president has made the right decision so far. We're there. We've exhibited strength. We've responded to their attacks with sanctions and commerce, which, by the way, has really crippled a lot of their economy, and it's unfortunate because the people are suffering as a result. But I think at this stage it's better than going in with military might. But Kevin, this goes deep, and it's got some complications. But the bottom line is that that culture, that society, that mindset is just not in sync with the West.
Congressman Russ Fulcher with us for a few more minutes. KIDO Talk Radio. Kevin Miller in the morning. Congressman, an issue that you've been a champion of here in Idaho and now in Congress, an issue that is bigger than them all, the issue of life. Now you've got heartbeat bills across the country being passed. Georgia now being sued for their heartbeat legislation. I believe Utah passed one. You've got, again, the Democrats last night saying that Roe v. Wade is out the door. How important is it to you personally and as an elected member of Congress to fight for the unborn?
Kevin, there's no bigger issue because it's not just the abortion issue or that industry. And believe me, it's an industry. It's a huge industry. It's a money making industry. But I think that's at the very root of who we are as a people, and it's how we uphold life in and of itself. Do we hold that dear? That's foundational to our philosophy. That's foundational to our culture, to our faith, to who we are. And as those who have strayed away from that and start systematically rationalizing that it's okay to take a life even after it's born, or to prematurely terminate a life later on. Then, if you can rationalize that, you can rationalize just about anything. And we don't have to go very far back in history to see cultures that have embraced that. The euthanasia, the abortion, the selective breeding, and so forth. So there is no bigger issue. There is no bigger fight. We could spend a couple of shows or a couple of weeks on that alone because there's a lot going on. But that will continue to be at the bedrock of the debate in this country, and there's nothing more important.
Congressman Russ Fulcher joining us. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. We'll get you out on this one. July 4th coming up. What's it like, again, through a lot of personal and professional sacrifice, being in Washington? I know you'll be home, but living that dual life as a congressman, as an Idahoan, and working where you work as you get ready to celebrate, your first 4th of July as a congressman.
Well, Kevin, I'll just tell you on a personal level, it is a lot of work if you're doing it right. But if it weren't for those who came before us, if it weren't for those who made the sacrifice of their life, liberty, and property, then you and I wouldn't be able to sit out on the back porch and have a hot dog or anything else on this coming July 4th. And I feel a fair amount of responsibility that, okay, right now, the people of our state have entrusted me with defending that and promoting who we are and our base value system. And so I take that very seriously. And this one is going to be more meaningful, Kevin. And it's going to be more meaningful to me just because I kind of feel that responsibility to honor those who came before and keep a system for those who come after me. And so we are in the center of the universe when it comes to economic and social power, and there's a huge responsibility with that.
Well, and you're reminded of the sacrifices of the founding fathers in your workplace. A lot of us go in, maybe there's the company history, but your office, not only in the first CD, but in Washington, it's impossible to ignore the sacrifices of those folks that gave it all so we would be blessed with the country we have today, sir.
I agree. And frankly, I think that's something that you and I share. We've talked about that in the past and the importance of our veterans and the importance of the families who have made it possible for us to be here at all. And it just can't be overstressed. We have people with hearts and minds that are willing to sacrifice for others. And that goes back to the previous discussion because you know why? Because they revere life and they revere the priority of that so much so that they, in many cases, were willing to sacrifice their own so that their children, their grandchildren could be there. And so this is a very honorable day, and I'm thankful to have a very, very, very small part in it.
Well, Congressman, we appreciate you. And I'm going to use your line. You're one of the good guys.
Thank you, Kev. Thank you. You are too.
Have a great day, sir. God bless.
Thank you, Kev. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Congressman Russ Fulcher joining us. Your thoughts next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.
President Biden, do you agree today that you were wrong to oppose busing in America then?
No.
Do you agree?
I did not oppose busing in America. What I opposed is busing ordered by the Department of Education. That's what I opposed.
Well, there was a failure of states to integrate public schools in America. I was part of the second class to integrate Berkeley.
See, here's the deal. And by the way, good morning. You're listening to Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Big debate last night. Maybe you watched it on Channel 7. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Joe Biden corrected her. Senator Harris, which, by the way, Can we say this? Please help me, and please let me know if this is unacceptable. But it's been published. I believe former Mayor Brown has admitted it about his affair with Kamala Harris. Nobody brings it up. If we're going to judge Joe Biden on working with segregationists, and he said he didn't like it, he didn't agree with it, they hated him, he hated them, they called him Sonny. And because Joe Biden had the gall to bring that up about working with people you disagree with, Kamala Harris is trying to subtly call him a racist, in my opinion. Joe Biden's a lot of things. He's the guy that forced Obama to come out about gay marriage, that he loves the gay marriage, right? Joe Biden corrected her. So what did she do? She went to another topic. It's kind of like talking to liberal Steve, really. That's number one. Number two, shouldn't we judge Kamala Harris when it comes to family values on what happened with her and Willie Brown? If we're going to start replaying the past, in another time, you might have had somebody say, well, if you're going to judge me, let's talk about your past, madam. But sticking to the facts here, you have Kamala Harris. All of a sudden, when that didn't work, she must have been an okay prosecutor. I don't think if she was a very good one. But going to switching the topic and getting all emotional. Coming up, Max in Garden City first. KIDO Talk Radio, traffic and weather together. Our time is 8:26. Kevin Miller in the morning. Hello, Robin. Oh, goody. Can't wait to talk about the fireworks next week. Max in Garden City. Good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio. Hello, Max.
Oh, no. Don't do the liberal Steve imitation. You'll get me going, and I'll have to give you a verbal beatdown. Don't do that.
Yes, sir.
All right. Yeah, listen, did you get to watch the debate yourself?
I watched half of the second one, and I've taped the first one, so that'll be my weekend.
Okay. Did you see that part where Kamala Harris went one-on-one with Joe Biden?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, we just played that, but yes, sir, I did.
Well, what's sad is I know a number of snowflakes in my neighborhood, and all of them thought that she played the race card and chickened out. When he gave really good answers, she fell back on I was a second-class citizen because I was black, and I couldn't write. She's trying to elicit sympathy from a largely unsympathetic audience. I think she lost ground. I really do, even with the Democrats.
I don't know. I think she played that pretty well, and you had the media sycophants going, "Oh, she took it to Joe. She sure showed Joe. Blah blah blah, Joe."
But wasn't the whole thing hosted by NBC?
True.
Liberal scum, liberal dirtbag.
Wow.
You know what? The Democratic Party needs to have a slogan, and the slogan is intolerance eternal. Is more than anything else, these people are so intolerant of everything. It's insane. If you ever do agree on something, they'll find a reason to disagree because they like to be intolerant.
Sure.
May they all find the truth.
No. Before you wish them all to the dustbin of history, did anybody strike you as compelling, as a danger to the president?
I didn't see anybody as a danger to the president, but what does Mayor Buttigieg, whatever how you pronounce his name, he is very well spoken, very controlled. I was impressed. Not enough to vote for him. He was a
little sweaty last night, and he didn't
he's always sweaty.
He didn't like the fact that people just didn't fawn all over him because there were other people in the room. He had to work for it. You could tell it was getting under his skin that he wasn't the chosen one.
No, that's true. He's fighting from a position of perceived inferiority. But you know what? Anytime you see him on TV, the guy is sweating. Now, I would think he either A, has a glandular issue, or B, he has heart trouble. That's a professional observation. Because this guy sweats buckets. He would sweat in a snowstorm.
Interesting.
It's worth looking at.
He's a
I mean,
sweaty
he may have
man.
had a good physical. He may be healthy, but again, there may be issues because he does sweat a lot.
He's a sweaty man.
Well, I think if anybody's going to challenge Donald Trump, it's going to be Jolton Joe Biden. And when they go one-on-one, Trump's going to eat his lunch and give him back his supper.
Well, you heard it here first from Max.
Listen, you take good care, keep it up, and hey, quick thing. Why are we addressing so many little issues when it's the sales tax on food that is really nailing the poor right now?
Agreed.
Other than that, I challenge you to give me a call. Answer the challenge, you're a man. Don't answer it, you're a talking head.
You going to be around next week?
Yes, sir, I am.
Might have something for you. I'll just Google your email, Max. It's under Max, right?
No, I don't know if you won't find the email on Google, I don't think.
Well,
Why don't you give me, you have a telephone, you have a finger. I won't keep you long. Push some buttons. I challenge you, my friend.
all right, Max.
All right, I'm waiting.
I'm looking under my email right now. I don't see Max. I know you've sent me 27,000.
No, I haven't sent too many because you don't return them.
I promise you on the air right now that if you send me an email today, I will email you back.
I'm going to fire that email off in the next 10 minutes, my friend.
Yes, sir.
And by the way, I think overall you're doing a heck of a good job here. We need you on the air because you're the only really thoroughly conservative voice we have. Probably 90% of the time I agree with you.
Well, 90's better than none at all.
Hey, I agree with my wife 50%. So you're up there, partner.
Thank you, Max. Take care.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie.
The Supreme Court has agreed to hear oral arguments on whether plans by the Trump administration to end Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA. Federal appeals courts around the country have rejected efforts by the federal government to move ahead with phasing out the program. Under DACA, so-called Dreamers who were brought to the U.S. as children can apply to receive a renewable 2-year period of deferred action from deportation and become eligible for a work permit. At the White House, John Decker, Fox News.
Always appreciate the great reporting of John Decker. By the way, when you hear Fox News on the radio, you're listening to KIDO Talk Radio. And speaking of John Decker, we have him on live now from the White House. And this is right up your alley, not only as an accomplished reporter, a professor, a teacher, a lawyer, a tennis pro. I don't know if golf is your game, but I think you're running out of time for things to do. Good morning,
Right.
sir.
Hey, good morning. No, golf is not my game. I enjoy watching it like many people do on television, but I do not play golf at all. But some big Supreme Court decisions announced yesterday on the last day of the Supreme Court's term, both with major implications for the 2020 election cycle and beyond. First, let's talk about the gerrymandering case. There was a case involving 2 different states, Maryland and North Carolina. The way that the state legislatures in each of those states constructed the congressional districts in those states was challenged, went all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court, and in a 5-4 decision, Chief Justice John Roberts said, essentially, we're not going to get involved. We're not going to second-guess what state legislatures do in terms of figuring out how a state is carved up into congressional districts, and this obviously will have major implications for 2020 and election cycles beyond 2020. And then the second case, Kevin, that the Supreme Court handed down yesterday involved that citizenship question on the 2020 census. Again, this was a 5-4 decision authored by John Roberts, and here he said that he, as speaking for the court, is not going to allow that citizenship question to appear on the 2020 census for now. He sent it back to the lower courts, and it could ultimately appear, but I think it's becoming more and more unlikely given how long it may take to get back up to the U.S. Supreme Court with all the appeals that may be filed in that particular case.
All right, John Decker, as an attorney, it seemed like the Chief Justice was trying to split the difference, not overwhelmingly rejecting it, but saying the federal government's argument wasn't compelling enough to warrant the decision. Am I misreading the results there?
No, that's exactly right. So the Commerce Department, which has overview, purview of the census, no matter what administration you're talking about, presented its reasons for wanting this particular question to be included on the 2020 census. And John Roberts essentially said, I don't believe you and your reasons. They lack credibility. And as a result, he said, if you want to have this included, you're going to have to provide more evidence of why this is necessary, and you'll need to do that with a lower federal court. We're not going to hear that new evidence. We're not a fact-finding court at this particular level. So that's what John Roberts did. I think that we'll have to wait and see what additional information the Commerce Department can provide at the district court level, which is where this case will now be heard. But it sets, obviously, the Trump administration back because the Trump administration has said they needed to know, yes or no, whether or not the citizenship question could be included on the 2020 census by the end of this month because the census forms need to be printed. And now it makes it in doubt as to whether or not the Trump administration will be able to include this question on the 2020 census.
A lot of people are not happy with the Chief Justice. Let's move on to a story we just shared with you. We shared from you the Supreme Court looking at DACA. Based on what we've seen, I don't know if it's too early to go to have a prediction on DACA, even though, and again, John Decker, please correct me if I'm wrong, originally President Obama, a constitutional attorney himself, saying DACA was, quote, unconstitutional, but he went along with it anyway for humanitarian reasons.
Yeah, he signed an executive order which gave rise to the DACA program. DACA, D-A-C-A, stands for Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. So every time you hear that term DACA, that's what we're talking about. And federal appeals courts around the country, they've rejected the efforts by the Trump administration to end the DACA program. And now this will be decided by the U.S. Supreme Court. So you ask me, how will it be decided? I don't know. I haven't seen the briefs filed by either side that will go before the Supreme Court to hear their arguments and read their arguments. And obviously oral arguments will take place in the new term, which begins the first Monday in October. So it's quite early to predict how the court will rule on this particular issue.
Right. Of course, many conservatives thought with that addition of Kavanaugh, Roberts, Alito, Gorsuch, and Clarence Thomas that it should be a slam dunk, but perhaps observers of the court, John, are saying that Roberts is the new Kennedy.
Well, that's right. He is turning out to be a little bit of a swing vote, maybe not as much as Justice Anthony Kennedy was, but certainly we saw this yesterday, both 5-4 decisions, and both 5-4 decisions in which Chief Justice Roberts sided with the liberals on the court on those particular cases. So, yeah, I mean, I think to a certain extent he is a little bit of a wild card, and that makes it that much more difficult to predict how certain cases will end up.
John Decker, always outstanding. We appreciate you, sir.
Thanks a lot, Kevin. Have a great weekend. Happy Friday to you. Talk to you real soon.
Yes, sir. Take care, John. You as well. Bye-bye. There we have it. John Decker joining us. What a nice young man. Really appreciate him. Occasionally, every year, we get a chance to go to Washington, D.C., and I believe we still have it in the archives on our YouTube channel, KIDO Talk Radio on YouTube. John Decker shows us his office and takes time out of his day. And this is during the Obama administration. And next time we'll have to ask him about, are there going to be any other type of events, if you will? Are there ever going to be any more White House press conferences? I have to admit they were very engaging, right? Anyway, let's get your thoughts on the loony left last night, KIDO Talk Radio.
What the President of the United States should do is not deny the reality of climate change, but tell the rest of the world that instead of spending $1.5 trillion on weapons of destruction, let us get together for the common enemy. I
believe on day one, and as president, will re-enter us in the Paris Agreement because we have to take these issues seriously. And frankly, we have a president of the United States. We talked about, you asked before, what is the greatest national security threat to the United States? It's Donald Trump.
Rural America,
can be part of the solution instead of being told they're part of the problem. With the right kind of soil management and other kind of investments, rural America could be a huge part of how we get this done.
We built the largest wind farm in the world, the largest solar energy facility in the world. We drove down the competitive price of both of those renewable sources. I would immediately insist that we, in fact, build 500,000 recharging stations throughout the United States of America, working with governors, mayors, and others.
With analysis and commentary, Tea Party Bob, good morning, sir.
Well, I can't stop laughing. I'm going to keep laughing for the rest of the day with those comments. You know, just a few words about these debates that I try to avoid at all costs. The one thing that always seems to be missing from all of the candidates' policies in the Democratic Party is they never seem to talk about how well the economy is doing under the tutelage of a real businessman who understands economics. Yesterday, I said that the reason we are having so many problems in the Treasure Valley is because politicians have little or no background in economics. That is the same problem we have with the Democratic presidential candidates. Now, they talk about how many free things they're going to give you, and the people that are going to get them never seem to tell them how it's going to affect them and who's going to pay for it, and how they're going to pay for it without taxing the hardworking workers of this country to death. They want to use non-carbon fuels to put in a carbon tax, but they don't tell you that the people most affected by this change will be the middle-income people, the lower-income people, and those who make actually less than $50,000 a year. The lower your income, the bigger the percentage of your earnings you're going to be paying in tax. It's the same as the grocery tax we have here in Idaho. The less you make, the more you're affected. When you hear the Democratic presidential candidates talk about the huge college loans that they have and that they're carrying, isn't it proof that they don't really understand economics? Most of them will never be able to pay back their loans, and giving free tuition will only give the colleges another reason to raise the cost of college education, as the government's going to be paying the bill. While the country's screaming for plumbers, electricians, and trade workers, we have the politicians wanting to give away free college, but nothing for trade schools, where the education is sorely needed, or for retraining our workforce. So let's keep in mind that the way to win elections is to put more money into people's pockets, especially those hardworking people in this country, not the pockets of the politicians who are going to squander that money on foolish policies that will help none of those that are paying the taxes. Trump will win the second term if the economy remains strong and if we continue to grow jobs in this country. And I want to thank Congressman Fulcher for his comments on the forest and the many wildfires that have ravaged our state for the past 20 years or more, and since the conservationists in the Forest Service have put a halt to most of the logging. Prior to the logging, when we were actually logging things, we're logging the forest, we didn't have these fires, and I have statistics to prove that. But try to go on Google and find those statistics. They're not there. They hide them. The U.S. Forest Service has been in charge of managing our land, and it has done a terrible job. It's time for change, and it's time for Idaho to take back the management of our land. It's time to start using our natural resources that God gave us instead of watching them burn year after year, causing untold medical problems from the particulate matter that they send into the air we breathe. And that's about all I have to say for this wonderful Friday. Kevin, thank you for another great show. Really appreciate having you and this forum that we have to talk about things.
Well, we appreciate you contributing, brother.
Thank you, my friend. You have a great day. Hopefully I'll see you tomorrow.
I'll be on our agreed secret meeting place. So,
got it, my friend. Take care.
Thank you. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Tea Party Bob visiting the old country. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. So recently, actually last night, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was interviewed by Jake Tapper. And for your entertainment purposes only, I want you to hear what the brilliant Congresswoman had to say when asked repeatedly to answer a question over her inflammatory comments concerning the concentration camps at the southern border, which is a complete fabrication.
And didn't you vote against the House version, too? Well, if you oppose the Senate bill and you also oppose the House bill, I guess I'm wondering what it is that you're willing to support that could pass in either the House or the Senate. But I guess my point is, isn't your desire for your vision of this bill? I mean, there are kids, as you point out, and the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kevin McAleenan, and he's been warning about this for months. It's going to be overcrowded. We need funding. $3 billion of the $4.6 billion is going to housing for kids, for migrant kids. I think another 800,000 or so going to housing for other undocumented immigrants, adults. By opposing both bills, aren't you just ultimately depriving these kids of housing facilities that they need? I want to ask you, last night you tweeted, quote, "Last week, we called the concentration camps at the border for what they are. In the week since, the acting director of Customs and Border Patrol resigned. Bank of America announced they will stop financing for-profit immigration detention and private prisons. Words matter," unquote. I guess two questions here. One, you're taking credit for calling these camps, your detention centers, you're taking credit for those developments by using the term concentration camp. And two, what do you say to Americans, especially survivors of the Holocaust or individuals who are related to survivors of the Holocaust, who say, look, academically you're right, the term concentration camp did not necessarily mean death camp, but colloquially, when most people hear it, they think death camp, they think Holocaust, and you're undermining your argument, and you're hurting us, you're hurting our feelings, hurting our emotions, hurting our memories. Using that definition, there were also concentration camps under Obama and under Bill Clinton. That is in the story that you retweeted. So did you call them concentration camps at the time when Obama was president?
Jake Tapper getting some independent cred there. Did you call them concentration camps under Obama, Congresswoman Cortez? Kevin Miller in the morning, traffic and weather together. Let's get you to work safely and on time. Good morning, Robin.
Last night is certainly what people are talking about this morning. I'm hearing words like "a star is born." She is fervent, but deploys her anger precisely like a flashlight. Voters in Iowa and New Hampshire are telling CBS News today that you had a strong performance. How do you intend to capitalize on that momentum? Clearly, the T-shirts is one way. I understand that those are already on sale.
There we have it. Gayle King, Democratic donor, gushing all over Kamala Harris. A star is born, everybody. Really? I don't think Kamala Harris is going anywhere. Then again, I was the one that said Jeb Bush would beat Hillary Clinton. So what the heck do I know? I do know this, that factually, the American people are not going to fall for someone that cannot debate an issue when their allegation is thrown back into their face. Now, the idea in professional wrestling, there's a term. They call it cheap heat. And an example of cheap heat was there was this wrestler one time calling himself Buff Bagwell. And, these carnival-like creative talents where Buff Bagwell would say, "I'm buff and I'm the stuff," right? Outside of Donald Trump, probably no politician in America would say that. But an example of cheap heat would be he would go into a town. And in the town, let's say it was Huntsville, Alabama. And he'd get on the microphone in front of everybody and goes, "I've got two things to say. I hate Huntsville and I love myself." And obviously, if you live in that town, you're going to go crazy. So back to the cheap heat, Senator Harris can't debate Joe Biden's civil rights record because you have the people that are still alive that fought for the civil rights, that were beaten for the civil rights, saying Joe Biden's their guy. So what does she do? Throws in the emotion, "my feelings were hurt," and you have the sycophants in the media sucking it up. Did she score any points except the outrage? Most likely not, but that's what sells in the slim margin of social media mindset today. Thankfully, we have each other, blessed to be together every morning to discuss the issues that matter to all of us. Have a great weekend, everybody, but don't go anywhere. Glenn Beck is next. Another outstanding show by Ray and Mai today. God bless everyone, and remember, Your home for Hannity, Fox News, and Milley is here. KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning.